Okay. All right. Hey, I got a new journal and it made me think about if I could go back in time and start my journal journey from scratch all over again, what would I do? And I now know that there are so many different types of journals. You could use a journal to basically organize your thoughts, which is the most basic type of journaling. You could use it to plan your life. You could use it to release pent up rage, which is my favorite. And you could just simply use it to document your life, whether that's daily, weekly, or monthly. But if I could go back in time and start all over again, this is how I would approach it. Like really, this is how I would approach it. So I would start by picking a time of the day that I would want to write. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to start with, but instead of trying to figure out what is the purpose of my journal and what would be the whole point of writing in a journal, I just start with the least complicated part of it, which is actually one of the most important parts, and it's to pick the time of day that I would be writing in my journal. And this could be in the morning, right before you wake up, or in the evening, right before you go to bed. The reason for this is because when you're trying to build a new habit, you start by doing something at a set time consistently for a lot of days until it eventually becomes a habit where it's like muscle memory and you just do it without even realizing that you're doing it. So creating that structure first where you're like, okay, I'm going to journal in the morning as soon as I wake up, or I'm going to journal right before I go to bed. Having that set before you even decide what type of journal to buy or anything, that will actually set you up to figure out the rest of what you need to know. And the rest of what you need to know is kind of a lot, but not really. I'm here to break it down because this is me if I could go back and start. So to not overwhelm younger me and you at the same time, this is basically what you should do next. So next I would grab Pinterest and start the research phase. Now, in the research phase, that's when you look at what other people are doing with their journals. And there are so many different types of creative people out there and different types of journals that it can get overwhelming. But the whole point of doing the research is to have an idea of what you want your journal to look like. And then the reason for that is when you have that idea of what you want the journal to look like, then you can go and buy the journal. It's not the other way around. You go and buy the journal after you research and you're like, okay, this is kind of the direction I want to go in. So I normally use a moleskin journal, and this hardcover with the strap that keeps everything in, and I love it. I love it. I write a lot and I go through a lot of these a year. And one day, while leisurely strolling through Amazon, I was recommended this journal. And look at the size of this thing. Like, this is 416 pages. Like, that is a lot of pages to go through. And the part that makes it fancy is that it has this gold trimming on the pages, which makes it look really fancy. And it's leather bound, but it's faux leather. And I have a thing for leather journals. I don't know what it is, but I just love a leather journal. And the fact that this is faux leather just makes it even better. So the other extra gem to this journal is that the pages have a yellowish tint to them. So it makes it feel like you're writing in an ancient book that one day someone in the far flung future is gonna find. I'm like, ooh, what kind of secrets does this book hold? And just it just makes you feel so good that I look forward to writing in it. And I started writing, so I have a few pages in it already, which is great because again, I write a lot. So I have a specific pen that I use to write as well. So if you're interested, I'll leave the links in the description. But because I write a lot, I need a pen to withstand my writing marathons. And when I'm writing and the pen starts going into the side of my finger and creates that dent, it gets very uncomfortable very quickly. So I have my very handy dandy pen that I use to write all my thoughts and everything, because journaling has really become such a pivotal moment. It's a sacred moment in my life that I would encourage anyone to start. And going back into the past, I would encourage myself to start a lot sooner. And it's like, when did I start? I came to America in 2004, so I started way before that. I started as scrapbooking, actually, and I would paste these photos that I would get, and I would write my thoughts about everything inside that regular exercise book. And that was basically how my journey started. And you don't have to get anything fancy. You could basically start that way. That's the way I started, but it helps to have a little bit more structure and to know what you're doing, which is why I'm providing all of this with the knowledge that I have now. So after you get your journal and you get your pen that you want to write with, now it's time to write. What the heck do you write about? Right? So that is one of the most asked questions when it comes to journaling, and that is a huge barrier for people, because there's a lot of reasons why. This is probably the only reason why a lot of people don't start journaling, because they simply don't know what to write. And it took me been journaling for almost 20 years, maybe a little bit over, but let's just go with 20 years. It took me 20 years to realize that starting to write in a journal is really, 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 really simple. And it basically starts with just writing whatever the hell is on your mind. That simple. The fancy word for this is called stream of consciousness, but what that means is that you basically don't have to make sense when you start writing. You could start writing like, well, today is Tuesday and I kind of don't know what to write about, but I'm going to write anyways. And I feel like I could probably be spending my time on something else, because guess what? You're journaling. You're into writing. You're writing about what you're thinking about, and it's just coming out and it's flowing, and you doing that is going to bring you a lot deeper into what you don't even know that you want to write about. And that's the most easy way to start. Another way that it took me, well, I kind of stumbled upon this method like 2 to 3 years ago, and it's very shameful that I never knew about this before, and it's kind of hilarious that I've never thought of this before. But the second simple way to write in your journal is to use prompts. Now, what are prompts? Prompts are questions that you answer in your journal. Yeah, that simple. Literally that simple. Because when you have questions that you're asking yourself and you're writing about them, the prompt basically gives you that direction to go in. And once you have that direction that you're going in, it's easier to write. Like really easy to write. And some prompts go deep. like really, really deep. And my favorite thing about using prompts is that I can dive into a topic deeper than just, hey, I should write about self care. Because I can do a prompt about self care and I would get like 20 or 30 questions about self care. And that's going to take me deeper into what that means to me instead of just, well, this is what I think about self care. It's so crazy that it's that simple. And prompts are like mini therapy sessions for yourself, by yourself. Yeah, I'm I'm actually starting a new prompt this series, and it the theme is self-assessment. So, it's self-assessment because we basically need to check in on ourselves from time to time to see if our actions are in line with the future that we want in life. And this series have 42 questions. 42 questions where it's a deep dive into self-assessment, and this series focuses on the different parts of life that we need to check in on more often. And it's 42 questions, which means it's 42 days of knowing what to write. That's the best part, where that answers the question, what do I write about? And gives you 42 days of things to write about. I'll link it in the description if you want to join this journey as well, if that's what you desire. So, when I started journaling, I have to be honest, when I did start journal, I didn't really like writing. I didn't like writing, which is why I kind of started with the scrapbooking. So I added pictures and then write what I feel about the pictures and then everything else that comes after that. And mostly I didn't like writing my thoughts down because, one, I was a teenager, and two, I had a fear of people reading my things and reading my inner thoughts and using it against me when it's just me trying to figure out why I'm having these thoughts in the first place. And that fear kept me back and held me back a lot of years from just simply writing. And if you have that fear, you need to push that aside. Either get a safe and put your journal in so it's away from people and you're the only one with the lock, the answers, the key, not the answers. You're the only one with the key who can go into that safe, and your thoughts are safe with you. And if you live with somebody who violates your privacy all the time, well, if you can leave, please do. If you can't, find a way to hide your stuff. Do it. Okay? And if I could go back, I would make journaling more of a creative purge of my thoughts, because it's a creative time. It's a time to release the things I've been thinking about that's been just nagging me all the time. And you should make your journal reflect that. You should make your journal reflect you, because basically it's a mini version of you. It's a book about you, your thoughts, your desires, your dreams, your everything, your anger, all of it. And it's kind of fun when you go back and read certain things that pissed you off. Like, I was reading one of my journals, I'm like, whoa, I was really pissed. And then I have no clue now what I was pissed about like a year ago. And it shows you in the grand scheme of things that most things don't really matter, and it doesn't matter to get you all riled up over, but it's good to purge those. And now I use fancy things like markers, and I use a marker and a stencil for each day that I'm writing. So I would use a marker to put the date on the top, then I would write the time that I'm writing, because it could be morning or evening. I later on when I'm reading again, I would love to know what time of day, what my thoughts were. And I also write the location of where I am when I'm writing, because I could be anywhere in the world, and it would be great to remember, hey, I was actually in this part of the world when I was writing this and feeling this, and that has become the headlines for all of my entries. So I would start with the date, then the time, and then the location. And I use the stencil for that. Sometimes I use washi tape to make it pretty. And then I'll use a thermal printer to print like small little prints and then tape them in the book. And it's just like, it becomes me. It becomes something that I look forward to. It becomes something that I stick with, because the benefits of journaling is it's so much. It's so many things, and it's wonderful. Like increased memory, like better mood, more you understand your mental health more, you understand yourself more. There's a lot of benefits to it. So if you want to start journaling, and I go back in time and basically encourage my younger self to be like, hey, start earlier, because this is going to get through some difficult times, and sometimes you won't have anybody to talk to, and you just open your book and write. And that is going to help you figure out what to do next and figure out how you went wrong. And everything that is on your mind can just get released instead of holding it in and then just blowing up one day. That's what I would encourage myself to do if I could go back in time. Yeah. So let's play Truth or Dare. I keep saying truth or dare. It's truth or false. Oh my gosh. Truth or false. Okay. Last week, I told you about a story about me dancing when I was younger, and I was dancing as a ballet dancer. So if you guessed that that story was true, then you're partially right. I did dance, still do, but it wasn't ballet. I never got into ballet. I never had the shoes. I never had the tutu. I did have a tutu like a couple years ago, but as a child growing up, I never did ballet. I did modern dance in high school, and I loved it. And that's the closest I ever got to ballet. But I do enjoy dancing, and I enjoy the thrill that I get from just going out and people who are just immersed in the music, and they're just dancing so hard that they're sweating, and they don't care that they're sweating off their makeup or sweating out their hair, just like completely glistening with sweat. That's the type of outgoings that I love. I don't like when I go out and people are like stand up on the wall and basically judging other people for what they're wearing. Like that brings me no joy. So the little times that I do go out, that's what I want to do when I go out. And that's the essence of my dance, my dancing. And I mostly dance at home. Music, big speakers. I have the Bose and the subwoofer. Like, you have to get the subwoofer if you have a Bose. And that just basically shakes the building. And I love it. I love it. So that is the essence of music and dancing for me. That was my story of last week as a ballet dancer. I wasn't a ballet dancer, but I did dance, and I still do love dancing. So this week, truth or false? I had to stop eating meat because I became allergic. So I remember one time I came home with my sister and opened the door, and the smell that hit me was like, oh my gosh, what is that? Something smells rotten. And right behind me, my sister, she's taller, I hear it in my ears. She's like, oh my God, something smells so good. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? she was smelling something completely different than I was. To me, the smell of the meat that was cooking smelled rotten to me. So my stomach was just like doing flips, like, whatever that is, we want no parts of it. And for her, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat that. And every time I would not listen to that gut feeling that's basically telling me, hey, don't eat any more meat, I would get the worst cramps. It felt like a boxer in my stomach that had threads, like studs on their gloves, and just beating me in my stomach from the inside out. That's how it felt. So, was that story true or false? Next time on Video Chat with Jody, you'll find out. Okay? All right. Bye.